What's up? It's Robert Fithen. Don't forget, I have an Instagram too. I always forget to mention this, but I have an Instagram, Robert Fithen Vinyl, if you'd like to follow me there. Video number 3 for Australia. It's officially a trilogy now. I did the first 2 parts where I went all around the country of Australia, all the different states, and spotlit music from all of those areas, and obviously left a few bands out. Got a bunch of great comments about, oh, you should have mentioned these. Oh, have you heard of these guys? Oh, you should check this out. Definitely appreciate all those comments, and please keep the comments coming. Always love the interaction as well. So I thought I'd take this video, the final video of the Australia trilogy, and talk about some of those bands that I missed in the first 2 videos, like the Go-Betweens, featuring Grant McLennan and Robert Forster as 2 great songwriters. These guys have quite a long career of just kind of your basic pop, some alternative pop, love songs. You know, it's just a great little band there that do all kinds of songs from Brisbane. We start off in Queensland again, like we did last time. These guys from there, and they actually they kind of like the bridge I was looking for in the first video between the Saints and Savage Garden. I knew there had to be some kind of in-between band, and, well, they're called the Go-Betweens, so perfect, again, from Brisbane. We make our way from there to New South Wales. We are now in Sydney for Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. Wow, I was not expecting that. Now, I've heard of Billy Thorpe for years. Children of the Sun is what he's known for here in the United States. The solo artist. I thought he was American or English or something. I had no idea he was Australian. I didn't really know he was with this band called the Aztecs, so I really appreciate the info on that, because this is one of the best ones I've heard, this Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. They were around for like the 60s. They were kind of like had a garage sound. Now, they went on from the garage rock, had that more of a classic rock, you know, the crunchy guitar, you know, the early 70s stuff. They morphed into that, and great sound from these guys. They always played something called the Sunbury Festival, which I also learned about, kind of like the Woodstock of Australia for a while. These bands, or the California Jam, actually, is more like it, because it kept happening year after year. But yeah, Sudbury Festival. It was great to find out about that. And Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, excellent guitar tone on this guy's guitar. Of course, Billy Thorpe, you know, a big guitarist the whole time with that Children of the Sun thing. I used to play that on rock radio with all the video game sound effects. It's an okay song. I don't dislike the song. I don't love the song. It's kind of there. But when I discovered the early rock of the 70s, 71, 72 stuff, they had this big song called Most People Think That I'm Crazy. Awesome, killer guitar tone and guitar work in that from Billy Thorpe. This is one of my favorite discoveries for the whole Australian thing, so I appreciate the comments on Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. I would have just thought he was the guy that did Children of the Sun. Who knew? We move on. We stay in Sydney. We move on to the band Buffalo, another band that I somehow overlooked in the first 2 videos. These guys more of a rockin' kind of band, straightforward rock and roll kind of sound. From Sydney, of course, like I mentioned. They have a lead singer with a real bellowing kind of voice, kind of that later 90s stuff, but they were doing it in the 70s. Once again, they're named Buffalo, one of the big rock bands from Australia. The bassist from this band went on to help form Rose Tattoo. So there you go with that. That is Buffalo. We move on. We stay in Sydney. There's quite a few bands that I overlooked in Sydney. There were quite a few bands that I actually talked about in Sydney as well. Radio Birdman. These guys, so in it, they've got their own logo. Now, you know you gotta be pretty cool to have your own logo like Radio Birdman. These guys have their own documentary as well. So I probably know more about them than I do a lot of the other groups on here, learned about more. They have a documentary called Descent into the Maelstrom, and really gives you a nice insight about their history and the members and all the different changes. These guys had a lot of personnel changes, people getting mad at each other left and right, always arguments, a very tumultuous band, but great, just great high energy punk rock almost sound from these guys. Radio Birdman is what they are. That documentary, once again, Descent into the Maelstrom, is really interesting. Tubi, Tubi is where you can check that out in the United States on that app. You got to deal with some commercials or whatever, but great stuff. Another one of the great bands that I picked up from the comments that you said I missed the first time around. How did I miss Radio Birdman? These guys are incredibly popular. Very controversial when they were first out. Used to get thrown out of things for using profanity, always getting kicked out and arrested and stuff like that. So they have that kind of reputation. They in the documentary, they don't get along very well with Nick Cave. There's a small Nick Cave section where they have some sort of tiff with Nick Cave. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. Radio Birdman. If you like hard rock from the early 70s, you got to check these guys out, as well as the aforementioned Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. Moving on to a more pop rock sound, the band Sherbet And as far as I know, it is Sherbet, not Sherbet. They were around in the early 70s as well, but they've got more of like a little bit of a pop rock song. They actually were around for so long that in 1981, same lineup, but they changed their name to just the Sherbs. So I've actually heard of the Sherbs. They had a couple of like minor hits on rock radio. I wouldn't even call them hits. They were just one of those Australian things where they have the one or two songs that come around and get played for a little while and then disappear. One was called We Have the Night or something like I Have the Skill, We Have the Night. A couple of songs, but really they're definitely more known in Australia for other songs and their big history. The thing I found really interesting about Sherbet is their publicity photo that they were using at the time. This is on Discogs and Wikipedia. It's all over the place. If you were kind of sensitive about the Orleans album cover, that kind of triggered you a little bit. You might want to close your eyes. Here's what Sherbet looks like. Yeah. Pop rock from Australia. I think that's an actual perineum that I see there. I had to actually cover that up. I didn't want to get the video taken down. But yeah, they are Sherbet. Something a little less out there, Baby Animals. With if we go a little later in time now, we're going to move on to like the 80s and whatever, but stay in New South Wales in Sydney for a minute. With Baby Animals, they have kind of an American sound to them. They don't really sound Australian or different. They sound just like they would be perfect on American radio. They've actually appeared on Late Night with David Letterman, and the vocalist Suze DeMarchi is one of the main draws, I think, of Baby Animals. She's got a great voice, and it's nice to hear some female vocals thrown in there. A lot of male bands from Australia is what I've been listening to a lot. So great to hear Baby Animals. Like I said, kind of an American sound. She's got kind of a Patti Smythe sound to her vocals sometimes. They're not really kind of a straightforward kind of, pop band. They do get really loud and hard. They got some sometimes they sound almost metal in some parts of some of their songs. So they do have kind of a varied sound, really interesting, but a lot of their more mainstream stuff sounds really American. They are Baby Animals. Another band that sounds kind of American is Noiseworks. Now, these guys were around mostly in the 80s. They've definitely got that 80s drum sound that I was saying in the first couple of videos that the Australian rock doesn't have, that I loved, that it didn't have. This one has the that real compressed kind of, I don't like that drum sound. Anyway, they have it. Noiseworks is their name. Heard a lot of great things about these guys. I think they're okay. Like I said, they have a kind of more of an American sound similar to Baby Animals. They had one song that made it to mainstream rock radio charts, and that was called Hot Chili Woman. And yeah, I've heard several, in these bands, I'll listen to like 20 of their songs. I don't want to judge any of these people on one or two songs. But that Hot Chili Woman's mess, that song's silly. And they definitely have better songs than that, but for whatever reason, that's the one they sent to America, and it went to like number, 35 on the mainstream rock charts. Which, by the way, I just wanted to add in there too. If you look at Wikipedia and you're looking at their charts and stuff, and you see something called US Main, that doesn't mean the main chart in the US. What US Main means is US mainstream rock. It's the rock chart, basically, for songs that got played on rock radio. That chart started with Billboard in 1981. So when you see US Main, that's what it means. I think it would be better if it said US Rock. That would be a better abbreviation, but for whatever reason, Wikipedia just uses US Main. But it doesn't mean the main chart, it means mainstream rock. But yeah, the band Noiseworks, I think they probably work better as a live band. They sound more like a party band that you just go to, throw back a few, and just have a great time. That's probably Noiseworks. So we move on from them, but stay in Sydney with Wendy Matthews. Now, she is obviously just her own vocalist, kind of more of an adult contemporary fare. I did get a couple of suggestions for her that said her voice was like silk and velvet. So yeah, she's got a couple of tunes in there. She covers everybody from Bobby Womack to Carly Simon. She is currently on some Australian TV music competition show called It Takes Two, which I would assume is some sort of duet thing, maybe a duet version of The Voice. I'm not sure. I don't really watch any of those shows like American Idol and The Voice and all that stuff. But apparently there's one in Australia called It Takes Two, and Wendy Matthews is a part of that. Like I said, she's got a real kind of American adult contemporary sound. It's that real kind of basic middle of the road stuff, but great voice. She actually sings backup on Cher's Heart of Stone. I'm trying to show as much vinyl as I can because I don't have records of any of these people because I literally just discovered them. So, there you go. She sings backup on the song Heart of Stone from the album Heart of Stone from Cher. Skull Cher. version of the album. See, I'm trying to show the vinyl. From vinyl, we go to the Vines. Yeah, these guys, I mentioned them really briefly, but didn't give them their own kind of section. On the earlier videos, I was saying how they were on tour with the Australian Invasion tour that Jet and the Living End were on, so were they. The Vines, great music from these guys on the first album. They were one of those bands that came out really huge. You may have remembered, they were big in America, along with people like, it was the time of like the Strokes and the White Stripes and the Hives and all those bands. They fit right in with that. Critics going nuts saying that they were the next Nirvana and all this stuff, and they really just couldn't follow that. You know, they couldn't live up to that. But they did have a few first good singles out there, really energetic stuff, really a great sound of the time. It was so nice to hear people like Jet and the Vines and all those groups when we had just gotten away from friggin' Limp Bizkit and all that kind of stuff, and Creed and Nickelback. It was right before all that, so it was good to start hearing some stuff that was energetic and fun and just decent music again for people like the Vines. But unfortunately, they did kind of go down in popularity with each album, was a little less, you know, revered, and then finally they're just kind of putting out independent stuff. But I think they're still around these days. Their lead singer, Craig Nichols, known for some kind of erratic behavior. I know they were supposed to play a couple of late night shows. I think they played late night with David Letterman, but it was just a horrendous performance. It kind of killed their reputation. They also were going to play Jay Leno Tonight Show, and that didn't even happen for whatever reason. So yeah, they had kind of a tumultuous thing there, but they had a good thing going for a minute. The Vines have a song called Turn Off the Radio. Yeah, you're not going to get any, no wonder radio stopped playing them. Don't come out with a song called Turn Off the Radio. A little advice for you there. And don't release it as a single if you do. One more from Sydney. The name of the group is The Gang of Youths. The lead singer, great voice on this guy. David Liao Pepe, I think is how you say his name. But yeah, they have a pretty much middle of the road kind of current, kind of sound very American as well. Sound like they could do really well on the radio here. Got a lot of catchy songs. And like I said, the lead singer's got a great voice. They're one of the more current Australian bands that were mentioned or, you know, suggested to me. And yeah, so I enjoyed some of their songs. But again, a real middle of the road American radio kind of sound that I've heard over and over again. The thing that sets the Gang of Youths apart is, like I said, the lead vocals. So we move on from Sydney to Findlay, New South Wales for the band Spiderbait. Now, you may be familiar with these guys. They're a huge cover of Ram Jam's Black Betty, or actually Leadbelly's Black Betty. They turned it into a song about a car, according to the video. It's an okay remake. It's the vocoderized vocals and that whole thing that was going on big, like in the late 90s here. I guess that got to Australia finally in the early 2000s. I don't know. But Spiderbait also has a female vocalist, so that's what makes them interesting. They kind of change up the male and female vocals. Janet English is her name. And she's so good, she's got her own. They made a Spiderbait compilation with just her vocals on it. It's like, doesn't that kind of miss the point of the whole male-female change-up thing? Anyway, a lot of fuzz, a lot of fun. These guys have a great sound. They were on the soundtrack to Ghost Rider, which, love that movie. I could just watch Ghost Rider just riding around with the fire in the skull and the fire streak behind it. I could watch just a movie of that for an hour and a half. It doesn't even have to have a plot. I love the whole visual of Ghost Rider, and these guys providing some of the soundtrack. Perfect band to do that. Spiderbait is what they are called, and yeah, fuzzy, high energy, a lot of fun. I do prefer the female vocalist over the male, because the male guy, like I said, does all of the vocoderization on his voice, and it sounds like he's, you know, singing through like a dictaphone or something like that. But Spiderbait from Findlay, New South Wales. Let's move away from that state and head to Victoria for Melbourne, where we find John Farnham. Yes, I was really raked over the coals for forgetting about John Farnham. I just assumed, you know, he's more of an older guy. He's like the Neil Diamond of Australia almost. Years and years of these big vocal performances. He's got a song called You're the Voice that made it to America and went to like number 82 on the charts or something like that. But he's the guy that he's Neil Diamond. You know, John Farnham is his name. The reason I didn't bring him up, you know, solo before is because I think in the U.S. he's mostly just known as the guy that killed the Little River Band. I mean, we don't have his big long history here. We just know him as the guy that took over the Little River Band, and then they didn't have any more hits. That's John Farnham, ladies and gentlemen. John Farnham. Heart covered that song, by the way, that he did. So you might know the Heart version of You're the Voice. Let's move away from John Farnham now, although you should check him out. He's a legend, legendary John Farnham. We stay in Victoria in Melbourne, and now we're going to talk about Mondo Rock. These guys, I don't know how I overlooked them the first time. They're huge in Australia, especially the Melbourne area. And they have songs like Primitive Love Rights. That was one that went, because like I said, they always got to have that one song that went to America. This one went to the mainstream rock charts, went to like number 31. But again, they have better songs than that. They have a lot of great songs. Mondo Rock. Not a very good name, though, but great songs. They actually did the original version back in 1980 of a song that Rick Springfield covered that I always liked, called State of the Heart. Theirs is more of a straightforward kind of love ballad. Rick Springfield has a lot of the 80s effects and backwards echo and electric drums and all that kind of stuff going on. But yeah, State of the Heart, they did the original version of that. Mondo Rock also has Summer of 81, not to be confused with Bryan Adams' Summer of 69. Now, Bryan Adams himself has admitted that that is not a song about a year. So I know what a 69 is. I'm not really sure what an 81 is. Is that where like one person just lays down straight and the other person like... I don't know, figure skates or something. I don't know. Summer of 81 by Mondo Rock, one of their... but yeah, they're not really a rock... Mondo Rock sounds like some metal band or something, and they're really kind of more of a pop kind of rock thing, but they have all kinds of hits in Australia. Moving on to a band that doesn't have a lot of hits, but it's pretty well known in the United States as well, Dead Can Dance from Melbourne. Dark, ambient... just kind of mood music. If you want to be in a dark ambient mood, put on some Dead Can Dance. It'll happen for you. They are responsible for all kinds of great soundtracks as well, and they definitely know what they're doing in that realm. Dead Can Dance, been around for a little while. They had, again, the Australian thing, they had one song that went to modern rock radio called the ubiquitous Mr. Lovegrove. So they did have a single, but they're really not a singles group. They're the kind of group that you put on, like I said, 2 o'clock in the morning. You want some like kind of down, low, eerie kind of music. It's like, I've done the Nick Cave. Now I'm looking for something more recent or, more fresh or whatever. How about Dead Can Dance? Actually, they're from the 90s, so some Nick Cave would actually be more recent. Anyway, Dead Can Dance. Dark stuff. If you're looking for something that's kind of ambient, little world music in there, but not quite as dark, check out another band from Melbourne called Not Drowning, Waving. Now, this is another group that a lot of Americans had heard of. I'd heard of them and Dead Can Dance, but I just didn't realize that they were from Australia, or I would have included them on the first 2 videos. But yeah, it's another kind of band with a lot of, little aspects of like world music and ambient and whatever, but they're much more straightforward pop than something like Dead Can Dance. They do have much more accessible songs in some cases, a little bit of a piano action there to mellow things out, and they provided soundtracks, just the same way Dead Can Dance do. They have the soundtrack to the awesome movie called Proof, starring Hugo Weaving. I remember I saw that way back in the 90s. A really good, very clever movie about a visually impaired man that goes around taking Polaroids of things and asking people to describe the Polaroids to him. It's a way that he finds out if his friends have been lying to him, and then there's this whole like relationship thing. From I think in 1992, I think. Check out the movie Proof for a great movie from Australia. I mentioned before in my last a couple Australian videos my favorite actors and whatever. I don't know who my favorite current celebrity would be in Australia. I guess Minty. He's probably my favorite Australian celebrity right now. Moving on, staying in Melbourne, but moving on to Hunters and Collectors. They're even more in the pop realm, kind of sing-songy a little bit. They had a couple of hits, again, just 1 or 2 that made it to America, didn't do much. One of them's called Back on the Breadline. That was the rock hit. They also had, well, I wouldn't say hit, that was on the rock charts. They also had one that hit the alternative charts called Where the River Runs Dry. Totally radio accessible. These guys sound very radio friendly, very hit oriented. Not my kind of thing, really. I hear so much of that anyway from American groups. But Hunters and Collectors, if you're into that kind of, basic radio friendly hit stuff, like, Goo Goo Dolls or something like that, you might want to try Hunters and Collectors from Melbourne. I think we have one more band from Melbourne to talk about, and I'm not sure how popular these guys are. They might be obscure, and they might just be a favorite of the person who commented, but they are called Stiff Richards. They have 3 albums out. They don't seem like they're extremely popular, but I checked them out, and they're basically like a new, throwback to the old punk stuff. They're playing in basements. They're rocking out. The lead singer's got this big... They don't look like a punk rock band. They look like just some dudes that got together in a basement, which is how I think a punk rock band should look. All the style and the piercings and the mohawks and stuff like that. I mean, these guys just look like they're hanging out in the basement, rocking out, which they are. The lead singer's got this big beard. He sings with no shirt on, got a beer gut, got these 80s shorts. I've seen like all these different looks, but the lead singer always has these 80s shorts on that he jumps up and down in, and I still don't get how grown men wore those 80s shorts and didn't just, I mean, I tried well, you saw what happened. Anyway, yeah, Stiff Richards is who we're talking about. Obviously not because the guy's got the 80s shorts on, so, you know, they're lying with their name, but they're very energetic. I'm just, again, not sure how popular they are. I don't know if this is maybe just the commenter's favorite band, but, you know, I'm glad they commented. I wouldn't have heard them otherwise. They don't even have a Wikipedia page. They have a Bandcamp page you can check out, but yeah, Stiff Richards, the final group from Melbourne that we'll talk about today as we move on from Victoria to South Australia and the city of Adelaide, where you will find Paul Kelly. This guy, another kind of legend at this point, because he's been around forever. He's an older guy now in his 60s, but he's still out there performing. Started off in the, I believe, late 60s, early 70s with a group, or maybe mid 70s with a group called the Dots. Yeah, mid-70s, because they were on that ABC Countdown show a lot. They kind of have a Elvis Costello kind of thing. People have compared this guy a lot to Bob Dylan, like the Bob Dylan of Australia, because he's such a great songwriter, known for a lot for his lyrics, as well as his, you know, the music and everything else. But I get more of a Paul Simon vibe than Bob Dylan, and definitely earlier on more of an Elvis Costello kind of thing going on, more in that vein than Bob Dylan. I mean, this guy has so many different types of music too. I mean, he goes everything from reggae to like hard rock to like just basic rocking out, you know, just a basic rock song to like, you know, like slow, sad song, like world music. It's all over the place. He does a lot of collaborations like later on in the 90s. But when he starts out, he's with the band called the Dots on that, like I said, on the ABC Countdown show a lot. I just wanted to clarify something with ABC Countdown. I used to see that a lot with like Kiss stuff. You know, here's their performance from ABC Countdown. And I used to think that they were talking about the American Broadcasting Company, like ABC here. And I was always looking for this show called Countdown, and I could never find it. I thought it might have been a show that was on for like only a year or something like that, like, you know, on late at night, like Don Kirshner's rock concert or the Midnight Special or something. But here's the deal with ABC Countdown. You'll see this actually if you look at the Kiss, whatever that, Kisstory, the DVD set. ABC is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, as well as being the American Broadcasting Company. Two obviously completely different things, but they both share the initials ABC. And the Australian one is where you find the Countdown show. It's basically their version of Top of the Pops, and all kinds of huge acts would be on there. Not only Australian, but people would come over from America, like Blondie and whatever, and Kiss, and be on the ABC, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and the show Countdown. So that's the skinny on that. It's not an American show. It's totally Australian. We move on from Paul Kelly from Adelaide to the band The Master's Apprentice. These guys are, again, late 60s. They started off with that kind of typical late 60s, a little bit of psychedelic sound in there, a little bit of garage rock as well. Moved on to have much more of a 70s kind of vibe thing with the classic rock. A lot of bands, of course, did this. Their song you should check out if you're into like, you know, real raw garage rock is called Undecided. One of the early songs from The Master's Apprentice. Sometimes they're just called The Masters, sometimes The Master's Apprentice, but very interesting group of guys. Again, they have a little short documentary that you can watch on YouTube, about a half hour long, if you want to find out more about them. But basically, their whole story is they're just this great rock band, similar to what I was talking about earlier with the band Radio Birdman. They have this kind of similar history there. But yeah, great early 70s. Got that crunchy rock sound. I still prefer Billy Thorpe The Aztecs. But, you know, as an alternate choice, you can go with these guys. They are the Master's Apprentice. A lot of great stuff from these guys. Big history of hits with these guys in Australia. And they have party songs. They have serious social commentary songs. That's kind of what sets them apart from the other bands. They were a little more political, a little more serious in some of their songs. You got the you know, Martin Luther King Jr. song, you know, coming from Australia, a whole different point of view. So yeah, check out The Master's Apprentice if you're looking for some more serious but still great hard rock from the early 70s. Again, from Adelaide in South Australia. One more mention of Adelaide. I brought up the band The Angels last time, and I got a great new tidbit from some comments about these guys, The Angels. Now, if you want to know more about The Angels, they were also called Angel City. Check out, I think it's part 2 that they're in. But I just want to add, they had this one song that apparently had audience participation. So if you're ever in Australia and some cover band starts doing this song called Am I Ever Gonna See You Again, just know the whole audience is going to start yelling out, fuck you, fuck off. They're probably not yelling at you. It's something they do with the song. So yeah, if somebody starts covering that from the Angels, similar to the high school dance experience I had with Billy Idol's Moni Moni. I'm just looking for excuses to show albums and CDs at this point. But yeah, Moni Moni, same thing. You don't want to play that at the church revival. People will start yelling things out with that Angels song. So we're going to move away from South Australia now to Western Australia for just a couple of more bands. The first one is Eskimo Joe. That's a band name. Black Fingernails Red Wine was their song that they sent to the United States as a big hit for them in Australia as well. More of a modern kind of band. Basically just pretty much a straightforward group. Got kind of a pop rock kind of sound, but big hits from these guys. A little more in the alternative rock era. Eskimo Joe. Really not a lot to say about them. They're okay. They're all right. So let's move on to the final group from Western Australia. From Perth, these guys are from, and they are the, what are they? The Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. Yes, Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. I'd heard of them. I didn't realize they were from Australia. They're kind of like the poor man's version of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which that's the way I've heard them described, which is strange because their records cost the exact same amount. But yeah, they're very fun. I mean, Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. They are exactly what their name implies. A fun band, a lot of energy, high speed, a lot of different things going on in the songs. Great visualizer videos, just like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I can definitely see why there are comparisons there. But yeah, from Perth, they are the the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, not the pornographic psych crumpets. I'm sure that's a totally different thing. Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. Hard to look up their... In fact, saying their name on YouTube is probably going to get me checked or something like that. I notice when you search for them, after you type in the word porn, the auto-suggest goes away. It's like maybe you're trying to look up psychedelic porn or something, which... That would be interesting to look up, actually. Psychedelic porn. I wonder what happens when you look that up and cancel the word crumpets. I'm about to find out. Thanks a lot for watching. Those are your suggestions for all of the great Australian bands that I missed on the first two videos when I did the whole loop around. No one, unfortunately, suggested any of the Northern Territory bands. I mentioned a few of those in part two, but I didn't get any suggestions on anything further, so we'll just stick with the Northern Territory bands that I've already discussed. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to please subscribe if you haven't done that. Thank you so much. If you have subscribed and you're commenting and liking the videos, please consider liking this one if you have not done that and you liked the video. And wow, it's been a great journey as I've immersed myself in the music and in some cases the culture and history of pop culture in Australia over the last couple of months I've been doing this. When I do videos like this, I just don't take a couple hours and hit, Wikipedia or something. I mean, I really delve into it and try to, pick out my favorites. And that's the thing is I'm walking away from this with all kinds of great, unfortunately, putting a lot of stuff on my Discogs wish list that I'm going to have to buy at one point. More money. But, I definitely discovered all kinds of great music doing this Australian thing. And thanks again for all those great comments. And thanks again for watching.